All right, folks, so inside this box is going to be the Icebreaker version of the COROS Vertix. So the Icebreaker version is kind of like a more special edition of the standard COROS Vertix. And the standard edition Vertix, it's not really all that standard. I mean, it's got the titanium build materials as well as the sapphire glass screen. So it's definitely already kind of like a premium GPS outdoor adventure watch. But the Icebreaker kind of takes that up a level by having an azure colored titanium bezel as well as a translucent case. And other than that, the features are going to be identical to the other Vertix models. And I did a video a while back that goes through all of those features, so I'll leave a link for that video in the description below. But in addition to unboxing and taking a really up close look at the Icebreaker edition of the Vertix, I also do want to share some of the results that I've had from the testing that I've been doing on the standard edition Vertix for the last couple of months or so. And one more quick little note before we get the Icebreaker out of the box is that COROS did send out the Gray Rock edition of the Vertix as well as the Icebreaker edition for review purposes, but this isn't a sponsored video or anything like that. So I guess let's go ahead and get this out of the box. That takes a little bit of effort. All right, so inside the box, it looks like we have that same looking case that looks like you could carry around a spare organ or something like that. And then inside the box, we've got no candy. Well, there may be candy hiding beneath the surface, hopefully. But just like the other Vertix, we're gonna have the watch itself right here. We're gonna go ahead and put that aside, as well as the straps. And then underneath, we have the user guide and then the charging cable. And not a single M&M in sight. Okay, so first we have the strap right here, and I'm gonna go ahead and bring in the other Vertix just for comparison. But this strap is going to be this really nice dark colored, like, I wouldn't even call it blue, I'd call it kind of like a more like a indigo, like a really like kind of like a dark bluish purple. And then for the actual watch itself, here's where we're gonna see that translucent case. And I was initially hoping that it was going to be completely clear, but it does have a little bit of cloudiness to it. They color matched the cover for the altimeter as well as the back of the device as well as the buttons with the same azure color. So that's really, really nice to see. Let's go ahead and peel this off. Go pair it up really quick. And the pairing process is really simple. I had the other one set up in just a couple minutes. Other than firmware updates, of course. All right, so while this is actually updating, let's go ahead and talk about some of the results that I've had from the tests that I've been doing over the last couple months. So in terms of GPS, I've actually found it to be pretty darn good. The GPS tracks have been nice and solid, and I do take it on wide open spaces as well as heavily wooded areas, and I really have not had any issues. And then even on switchbacks right here, and this is going to be both going up as well as down, so slow speed as well as high speed, really accurate tracks. And then distance calculations have also been very close to other test devices. And then in terms of GPS acquisition, I would say that it's good. It's not the best out there, but it's good. So it usually takes about 10 to 15 seconds for to acquire a signal, at least around where I live. And then there were a few occasions when I traveled off to a farther off location where it took maybe like 30 to 45 seconds to acquire a GPS signal. And then in terms of the altimeter and collecting elevation data, it's been really darn solid. It's been very close to other test devices. And then in regards to heart rate, this run that I did right here, it stayed very steady throughout the course of the run, but it did trail off a little bit at the end by about 6 beats per minute. But now let's check out some cycling, which can tend to be a little bit more challenging for a wrist-based heart rate sensor. So here's an example of a road bike ride that I did where it tracked pretty darn well, pretty much for the entire ride. There definitely are a few occasions where it spiked a little bit, but I think for the most part, this is pretty darn good. And then taking it indoors, we see again that it tracks really nice. You'll see on this second increase here where it actually did kind of have a hard time catching up to the quick increase in heart rate, but it did lock back on for the peak. And then you will see a few inconsistencies here and there, but I was standing a little bit, so that definitely can throw off a wrist-based heart rate sensor. So that's road biking and indoor cycling, which don't have a lot of wrist flexion and movement other than possibly standing and sprinting. But mountain biking is a whole different story where it's going to be, shaking around a lot. There's going to be a lot of wrist flexion. And I haven't really found many wrist-based optical heart rate sensors that do a decent job. So you'll see here that it's not perfect by any means, but gosh, it tracked pretty well for most of the ride. So you're going to see some occasions where it kind of went off a little bit, but what you'll see is that it kind of locked back on really well. And then here's another example where, again, it tracked pretty well. You'll see it kind of trail off in a few spots here and there, but again, it kind of locked back on. So this is awfully surprising because although the Vertix isn't like the heaviest or biggest watch out there, it's still not also the smallest or the lightest either. And then these watches that tend to be on the heavier end of the scales or larger end of the scales, they just don't tend to get that good a heart rate just because they will be shaking around the wrist quite a bit. But don't get me wrong, it's not perfect by any means. So there's going to be still stuff like weight training where most wrist-based optical heart rate sensors really aren't going to do that great a job, just because, again, there's just going to be so much wrist flexion. There's so many different types of movements there. Oh, and it looks like the icebreaker firmware has updated, so we can take a look at that in 1 second. But one last thing is that the battery life on this thing is hilariously good. It's just like, I just never even have to worry about charging it. All right, so taking a closer look at this. So the translucent case, it's definitely translucent. It's not clear by any means, but it's translucent. So they actually have to hand assemble this just because there can be some imperfections with the machine assembly process. And when I talked to COROS about the durability between the clear case and the opaque counterparts, they said that they should be similar. Now, in terms of the azure colored titanium bezel, so this is going to be an anodization, so it still can scratch for sure, but it's really going to be quite nice looking. I do really like the fact that the buttons, as well as the back of the device, and as well as the little cover for the altimeter, all those are going to be color matching. That's super nice to see. All right, so first impressions of the icebreaker version of the COROS Vertix. Well, it's pretty nice looking. I do wish that the translucent case was a little bit more clear. Now, the Icebreaker edition of the Vertix does carry a $100 premium over the standard edition Vertix, and that's probably been one of the biggest topics of discussion with the Vertix, is that the price with the features that it has, it's going to be a little bit of a tough sell compared to some of its competitors. And here's the thing, it's not like the Vertix is a cheap watch by any means. It does have premium materials like the titanium as well as the sapphire glass screen. It does have absolutely crazy battery life, but basically what it comes down to is that the Vertix is going to be tailored for a very particular type of customer. And that probably comes down to more of that ultra endurance athlete or somebody that prizes battery life more than anything else, because the battery life is kind of nuts. Now, one more thing I do want to mention about price is this case. So this case, it can't be cheap. I know it's not going to be like hundreds of dollars or anything like that, but if you were to eliminate this case and kind of go with something a little bit more simple, I think that could reduce the price a little bit at least, and just make that price a little bit more palatable. I mean, everybody does like a nice case and all, but this is definitely on the more extreme end of things for sure. All right, so that's it for the first look of the Icebreaker edition of the COROS Vertix, as well as kind of a testing update. But like I said, I am trying to wrap up the testing of the Vertix pretty darn soon, as well as this guy here too. And I'll have those videos out soon, I promise. But make sure to subscribe to get a notification when those videos come out. And if you like the video, hit that like button down below. And in the meantime, go get some adventuring done.